Welcome to Giant Cocktails, a podcast where two lifelong fans talk about the San Francisco Giants while drinking homemade cocktails. Now, here are your hosts, Ben and Matthew Henry.
Welcome to another episode of Giant Cocktails. I am your host, Ben Henry, alongside my brother, the laggard, Matthew Henry. How you doing, Matthew?
I'm doing great. It's who am I kidding? I'm not doing great. It's just that time of the year, dude. I mean, the Giants aren't even going to make the playoffs. The 49ers just lay an egg in the last quarter of the game. There's only so much booze someone can drink, Ben. Okay. Although I did put out on Twitter today, though, that our cocktails numb the pain of a 49ers loss as good as they do a Giants loss.
Wow, that's good because you're talking about the game, the football, right?
Yeah, the one with the little weird ball. The weird size,
the Dirty Miners, the Dirty Miners team.
Yes, yeah.
Right. Aren't those games like 7 times as painful as a baseball game?
They are, yeah, because there's only 17 of them. Yeah,
because everybody's got to moan and groan for a week about how, and they lost to those guys in that place, which they like to say, "Oh, this is our house," even though it's your house, that sort of thing. Yeah. Maybe they should try to not suck so much. If only this was a Dirty Miner podcast, but it's not, Matthew. We're here to talk about the San Francisco Giants, and you were moaning and groaning about them because, there's a week left. There are 3 more podcast episodes, counting this one, for this season. And Matthew, the Giants are playing for nothing but their pride and their paychecks. And Bob Melvin is trying to make sure that veteran players respect him. That's all that anybody cares about at this point. That's what they're playing for. And is it upsetting that they're laggards just like you? Or is that great? I don't know. Do you think that's great? That finally they're playing good baseball?
No, I don't think it's great.
You don't think it's great? You would be happier if they were playing bad baseball?
It's like preseason baseball, where it doesn't matter if they play well or terrible in the spring training games because it doesn't matter. Well, right now the games don't matter. So it doesn't matter what they do at this point.
Oh, what are you talking about? Bob Melvin would tell you that those games matter very, very much. They matter to the Twins. They matter to the Mariners. They matter to the Detroit Tigers.
Detroit Tigers. Oh, man.
I don't want to think about that.
Former Giants general manager Scott Harris's Detroit Tigers. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Canna's former Detroit Tigers.
He
got traded and he was like...
He's rooting for them now. He might get a playoff share now.
Yeah, he probably is. I mean, he probably prefer to be there with them. But you know what? Maybe he was part of the problem.
Maybe.
Do you remember when they played each other? And they were kind of like, I think I referred to them as being the Giants of the AL. Just kind of like Midland, not doing a whole lot. And they came in and the Giants looked like they were about to go on a run. And they won that series against the Tigers. They took 2 out of 3, and you're like, okay, good. You did what you needed to do. Wish it was a sweep. And I think we even kind of complained how they only won 2 out of 3 to a team like that. And now that team is tied for the last wild card spot with the Royals, who the Giants today knocked into that tie.
Well, a month ago, on August 21st, the Giants were 1 game over 500, and Detroit, I think, was 3 games under 500. A month later, Detroit is now 82-74, and the Giants are not.
Yeah, I might be putting the cart way before the horse here on this, Matthew, but the Tigers, interestingly enough, are the only team who has thrown more innings in relief pitching than the Giants.
Huh.
So see, even with this ridiculous, we could have, it's just because...
Maybe we should do a breakdown of the Detroit Tigers bullpen.
Maybe we should. I bet it's a good one. I bet it's very, very good. Yeah, well, anyway, we're talking about the San Francisco Giants finally showing up. They're putting it all together, folks. This is the team that we had been promised all year, and we're finally getting to see it with 9 games left to go in the season. Oh, I guess it started around 12 games left to go in the season. But before we get to all of that, Matthew, I wanted to ask you a question related to that.
Okay.
Is late better than never? And I guess you already answered it.
I did. And I know what you're trying to do with these. Usually you have this like hidden agenda with these questions. They kind of, but I'm going to just tell you, no. Late is not better than never. Okay. Because now it's never. I mean, too late is never. And so, yeah, I'm so sick of it. And
yeah. Okay.
So yeah, they should have gotten their act together a month ago, like the Tigers. That's what they should have done.
It just occurred to me. Yeah. The Giants have now been knocked out of the wild card officially. This is our first show since that happened. You can't be Mr. Optimist anymore.
No,
You cannot even pretend.
I texted you today going, woohoo, 3 in a row, we're going to make the playoffs. And I was like, oh, yeah, wait.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, today is Sunday, September 22nd, as we record this podcast. Your San Francisco Giants, they went 5-1 this past week against 2 teams in playoff positions. One of them fighting to be one of the best teams in the AL. And, they took it to those guys. Took 2 out of 3 against the Orioles, and quite frankly, could have won that third game. If not for one replacement player, Donovan Walton, not getting the bunt down, and one former playoff-bound Mark Canha not grounding into a double play. And then, of course, the second best closer on the team giving up a 2-run homer to just let the fans walk it off because, don't we just love walk-off home runs on the road? He's the best closer on the team. I know that. We're going to get to that later in the show.
We are.
We are. He's the best on the team. There's no doubt about that. But then anyway, they went into Kansas City. And Matthew said it doesn't get any easier, but I feel confident. I think they could sweep. And they did. 3-0 against the Royals. And today, Matthew, I texted you and I said, can you imagine being in a battle with 3 other teams for 2 playoff spots, and you've lost 2 to these chumps that are an inferior team to you, and now you have to face Blake Snell?
Yeah, that's not fair.
Right?
That's not fair.
Yeah, and you know what I said? Must be nice.
Of course, the Royals could have had Blake Snell if they'd offered up the right amount of
That's right. Well, I mean,
prospects.
All of those teams could have had Blake Snell.
Yeah.
A lot of teams could have had Blake Snell for the money or for prospects. And all of those teams battling for the playoff spots don't. Yeah. And if the Royals had traded away enough people, they would have had Blake Snell on their side today. But no, that's not the way it went down. But who cares about those guys? Couldn't care less about the Kansas City Royals. We've already mentioned it, but we have to say it officially. The San Francisco Giants were eliminated entirely from playoff contention on Thursday. And now it is not possible for them to make the playoffs. This does not mean that we will stop asking that question in the lightning round on Wednesdays, however. We have committed to the bit, and we're sticking to it. What else? Oh, yeah. I mean, they're like a billion games out of first place I got to do this. I'm sorry, folks. But it has to be done. The San Francisco Giants are 16 games out of first place behind the Los Angeles Dodgers, who have already clinched a playoff berth. That makes them 10 games behind third place Arizona and 13 games 13 games. 13 games against behind the San Diego Padres. Sorry, it's a lot. It's a lot for me. In the wild card spot, let's see. They're tied. The D-bags and the Mets are tied, so that must mean that the Giants are 10 games behind the last wild card spot. But that doesn't mean the Giants can't still play a role in the wild card. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that because we're going to talk about how well the Giants have been playing. There are a lot of promising signs in the way they've been performing. And then I think there's a lot of just sort of bittersweet elements to it too. And we're going to go over all of that because that's the time of season that it is. And then we're going to review the bullpen. And we're gonna talk a lot about we're probably gonna talk a lot about Camilo Doval and Taylor Rogers, quite honestly. But we're also gonna talk about Spencer Howard and Nick Avila and Kai-Wei Tang because I'm mad. But before we do all of that, Matthew, it is time for the trivia question.
All right. Well, today's trivia question, because we're playing the Royals, and especially when every time we play the Royals, it harkens back to 2014. And so I thought I would look at maybe some similarities between the 2 years. In Saturday's 9-0 win over the Royals, the Giants hit 5 home runs, 2 each by Lamont Wade Jr. and Matt Chapman, and 1 by Yaz. The trivia question is, how many home runs did the Giants as a team hit against the Royals in the entire 7 games of the 2014 World Series?
I remember this. Madison Bumgarner hit 7, 1 in each game.
Okay.
That's why he was the MVP of the series.
That's right. That must have been it. Yes.
Well, they let pitchers hit then, and he loved to hit. He really did.
Even when he was in Royals in Kauffman Stadium, he got to hit. I guess
that's true. That's right. And he even got to hit in the games he didn't pitch in, because that's how good of a hitter he was. It was 7 home runs, all of them by Madison Bumgarner.
All right, we'll find out how wrong Ben was at the end of the episode.
Isn't it time for the booze, boys?
Yes. It is time for the booze. But first, Ben, do you want to give us a little update on The Perfect Sip?
Yes, our new podcast, The Perfect Sip, debuted last week on Tuesday with our first episode. It was just me. And as I mentioned on Wednesday, I was a little dry, a little boring. But they're going to get better. They're going to get better. I talked a lot about everything that you need to know before getting started in the hobby of home cocktail crafting or mixology. Whatever you want to call it. It's not bartending, though, because I'm not talking about, how to entertain your guests or how to juggle a shaker. Right? We're not talking about those sorts of things. We're talking more about how to craft cocktails. That is the point of the series. But more importantly, on Friday, we had our first happy hour episode. And you guys, happy hour because that show started here on the Giant Cocktails. Well, now it's back, and we had our first transplanted episode over on The Perfect Sip on Friday. So if you haven't listened to that, go give it a whirl. If you remember the happy hour from days of old, then you will probably like it. And things have been going very, very well. I thank you all for downloading and listening. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Like, even if you have to, to download it and then, fast forward it. No, don't do that. Listen to us. But whatever you got to do. So things are going well. I mean, we've had a lot of downloads. I mean, it's not a lot. It's double digits, folks. Let's not all get excited. Okay.
I'm excited. That sounds like
I'm
awesome.
excited. It's doing much better than I could have hoped. So we'll see if we have a sophomore slump with the second week coming out. But the next episode will be tomorrow as you're listening to this podcast, and it'll be all about mixing equipment. The equipment that you need when you're getting started. We're going to be talking about measuring equipment, shakers, and mixing glasses. And that's it. That's The Perfect Sip.
All right.
What are you drinking, Matthew?
Well, good, Bob. I'm glad you're keeping us on track and don't really care about the perfect sip, probably because you're not in it. Bob, I'm drinking an original cocktail that I've created that I'm calling the Garden Party. And it is a cocktail that I'm going to be bringing to some charity events later this week that I'm bartending for. Both a YMCA golf tournament and a high school poker tournament. So I am bringing vodka. It's a vodka-based cocktail because, folks, everybody loves vodka. Just that's what people want. So I'm going to give them what they want. This one has 2 ounces of vodka, 3/4 ounces of lemon juice, a 3/4 ounces of chamomile-lavender syrup, which I've used on another couple of, cocktails here recently, and then 1 dash of cherry bitters. And you're going to put all that into a cocktail shaker with ice. You're going to give it a good shake until well chilled, double strain into a coupe glass, and garnish with a lavender sprig or a lemon twist if that's what you have. And it kind of tastes like a cherry Jolly Rancher. Actually, it's a little like cherry tartness, it's good. It's fun. So that's what I'm drinking. The Garden Party.
That's a tasty cocktail.
Yeah, actually, it's very nice. And gin would also go well with this if you're not a vodka fan. You could sub gin.
What are you drinking, Ben?
Well, thank you for asking, Bob. That's very kind of you. Bob, today I am drinking a cocktail from our back catalog. This originally made its debut in episode 37, which we published on October 31st, 2021, I believe. If my records are correct, we were reminiscing about the season of 2021 and what heady days those were and how naive and dumb we were. But anyway, that's not what this is about. This is about the cocktail that is now named the Winter Vacation. It was previously called something else, which I thought, previously called Dreams of Summer, but I realized Winter Vacation was a more appropriate name. And why am I drinking this cocktail? Well, this is the cocktail that I featured on Friday in the happy hour over on The Perfect Sip. And because on that day, in that episode, we presented 2 cocktails that we felt were our most favorite original recipes that Matthew and I had created. So if you want to hear all about why that was and what changes and all that sort of stuff I made to the Winter Vacation, you can go and listen to the happy hour on The Perfect Sip. There will be a link to how you can subscribe to the show in the show notes. But if you don't want to do all of that, what is in a Winter Vacation? It has 2 ounces of white rum, 3/4 of an ounce of lime juice, 1 ounce of ginger syrup, a spritz of rosemary tincture, and a lime wheel for garnish, and either a cinnamon stick or wood chips for smoking the glass. And to make it, you are first going to smoke the glass by using a smoking kit and wood chips. I like apple wood chips. Or you're going to take a cinnamon stick, scorch the end of it, and while it smokes, you're going to put your cocktail glass, I use a coupe, over the top of that stick while it smolders. Don't put it on something that it's going to burn. Like put it on like a plastic cutting board or something, or something safe. And then you are going to take your rum, your lime juice, your ginger syrup, and you are going to shake that in a shaker with ice. You are going to double strain that into your now smoky glass. And then you will drop in your lime wheel and hit the whole thing with 1 spritz or 2 of a rosemary tincture. And that is how you make the Winter Vacation. And that's what I'm drinking today, Bob.
That's a tasty cocktail.
It's pretty good. I just finished it. And now I'm cocktailless. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Sometimes they're just so good, you got to drink them quick.
That's right.
But at least now you maybe feel a little bit more inebriated as we talk about how the Giants get hot at the wrong time.
I'm not inebriated enough to talk about this, I don't think.
Well, Ben, as we kind of alluded to at the beginning, there's some major questions that need to be asked as it regards to how the Giants are playing at this late part of the season. And the number one question is, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck, Ben?
See, Matthew? This is the team they were putting together. This is it. This is what we all wanted. Look at that. I mean, you've got this really strong rotation with some dominant, really good veteran guys at the front. And you've got your young guys at the back of the rotation, just like Farhan said it was, We've got this great young pitching depth. And yeah, those guys that were injured, Robbie Ray, Alex Cobb, they came back from their injury. And, one of them got injured, which honestly, we should not be surprised. And one of them's going to the playoffs. And we shouldn't be surprised about that either. And so it all finally came together. And yeah, the offense, it's a little hit or miss, but we knew that, Matthew. We knew this offense was going to be hit or miss. Like some days it was going to score 10 runs. Some days it was going to barely score 2 or 3. But because your pitching was so good and because you had a really strong bullpen, maybe not the best bullpen, but an above average bullpen, you were going to be able to win more games than not. And you were going to be competitive against anyone. And that's what we have. It happened. Farhan's a genius.
A genius.
He's a genius. Yeah.
At game 156.
If only he knew that the rotation we needed was Hayden Birdsong, Landon Roop, and Mason Black, along with Snell and Webb. And if only Snell was... Oh, well, yeah. I mean, if only there was one Blake Snell instead of the 2 Blake Snells that we got.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah. I don't know. I mean, we talked about this at the top of the show. It almost is more irritating to see this team finally come together and to start play consistently good baseball, to have quality at bats. And when there are runners on and having the big hits. And I know a lot of that is luck, but a lot of it looks like, approach, concentrating in the at-bat. And, maybe I'm just grasping at straws because it's like, what do I know? I'm just an old man sitting in his closet. I know you don't like that. I'm a middle-aged man sitting in his closet. And I don't know how else to explain the fact that they're finally putting it all together. But I think what really irks me is that neither do the San Francisco Giants. They don't know either.
Not a clue. Not a clue.
And I think that's what upsets me the most about all of this is just sort of it's like everything else with this organization is just sort of accidental.
Well, even you can't even take joy in the young guys playing well because like today's game on Sunday, for example, I mean there was a key hit. The key hits right there were Gerard Encarnacion, Grant McCrae, and Brett Wisely, all young players, 2 of them rookies. And you can't even say that those guys are going to be key parts of this, of the team next year, and so it's like, what is the point of, I don't know. It's like, I know we're ranting on them to play the young guys, but at the same time, I can't even get excited about them because I'm not entirely sure if they're even going to be on the team next year. What we're supposed to get excited about doesn't happen. And then when the things that, some things, good things happen, then you're kind of like, well, I don't know if I should get too excited because who knows what's going to happen to those guys. And so it's just,
Right. Well, I mean, that is true because that's what this organization has sort of taught us to expect. I mean, I think we already know that Gerard Encarnacion is the likelihood that he's not going to be with the Giants next year. And if he does, he's going to be fighting for a spot just like everybody else. It's very possible that the Giants go out and they sign some sort of underwhelming, retread, oft-injured outfielder because Farhan is nervous about making a commitment to his young outfield. So those, because those are things that we've seen happen in the past 5 or 6 years, right? And so there's no reason to think that they won't happen this year. I know that, we would all love to see Juan Soto get signed and then make that hard on somebody like Grant McCrae. Because I think if Soto gets signed, then it's Lee and Ramos and Soto in the outfield. But I think we also all know the chances of Soto getting signed by anyone other than the Yankees is going to be very low. And that team being the Giants is going to be extremely low. right? The Giants are just there to drive up the price, as always. So I think that's kind of like, and that's just that's what we have become accustomed to as San Francisco Giants fans. Like, and the reason that we're bitter is because when they're finally playing well is when none of this matters. And we really can't count on any of it. It's like when Canna or Conforto or Snell all do something great, we're like, well, those guys are almost definitely not going to be Giants next year, except for Snell. And even then, it's going to be, we're going to have to wait and see all winter long. And that's just a maybe. So it's hard to be excited about any of this stuff. And they're still doing weird things, right? Like Matthew, they allegedly say that they found Marco wandering the halls. They put him on a bus and they sent him back to Sacramento.
Oh, well, then he must be there. We should just go see him and say hi. Make sure he's okay.
Right, yeah. But then I heard somewhere that he's not actually going to Sacramento. He's in Arizona. So it's still like... That's a
different direction than Sacramento.
Yeah, it's still like, Marco Polo. Exactly.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows where he is. And so all of those things are still going on, right? And so it is hard. It is hard to find something to be positive about. But what I have realized, what I remember from the early part of this season, Matthew, when you were really down in the dumps, because I think you felt then like you do now. It was foreshadowing.
It was. Yeah. Yeah.
Was that that sometimes I have to point out the positives. And I do want to point out that there are still some things that this team can fight for that we should care about. I think. I don't know.
Sell it to me, man. Sell it to me.
Okay, yeah. Listen, I'm the cynic on the show, all right? This is not what I usually do. All right, listen, I know. Oh, you know what? I thought maybe you don't want this. Oh, well, maybe we'll put it this way. Matthew, you were the one who coined the term homeostasis.
Yes. This
was your invention. Now, I want you to know that homeostasis is in doubt. This team is playing really well right now. If the Giants don't go, and they're also the 2024 Giants, so they could disappoint you. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, of course.
Right. So if this team goes 2-4, they will finish 4 games under 500, and that is not homeostasis. If they go 4-2 or better, they will finish at above homeostasis. If they go 4-2, they'll finish at 500, which, and if they go 5-1, they will finish above 500, which I think this organization desperately needs. It desperately needs to say they had a winning season. I know it means nothing, but yeah. So like,
so you think like 82 and 79 or 82 and 80 is like significantly better than 81 and 81?
No, I don't think it's better at all. I no. But when people this is what will happen, Matthew. They'll be like, how many winning seasons did Farhan Zaidi have? If they go 82 and 80, they will count that. They will say he had 2. That's what they'll say.
Yeah. Okay.
So 500, winning above 500 also does matter. And then, of course, the group of people that I blame the most for performing poorly this year is the players themselves. Do they want to be on a losing team?
No, they do not.
No, they do not. And then there's homeostasis, Matthew. How badly do you want them to finish at homeostasis? Because I agree, there's no point to it right now, so it might as well be something fun.
Exactly. From a podcaster point of view, we're going to have fun with it if they finish at homeostasis. From a pure fan point of view, of course, I want them to be above 500. I want them to win as many games. I want them to knock the Diamondbacks out of the playoffs. Is what I want.
That's the one thing that I didn't bring up, which I think is the most important thing. The Giants have the opportunity to punch the D-bags right in the throat, right where they deserve it. They can get Jock right in the jock. You know what I mean? Like the old 1-2. 1 to the jock, 1 to the throat. They could do a Tommy Pham, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
they could go in there, or well, I mean the D-backs could come into San Francisco and have their season ruined,
slapped around like a Tommy Pham, Jock Peterson outfield spat.
That's right. The Giants come in there like a wronged fantasy football competitor, and they can knock them out of the playoffs, right? And the D-backs are reeling right now. They had a devastating loss today as we record this podcast. Devastating. They are tied for the last wild card spot. Now, the Braves are 2 games behind them, but hey, if the Giants sweep them or win, if the Giants sweep the D-backs, they could knock the D-backs out of a playoff spot going into the last series of the season. And quite frankly, that is something that I do want to see as a fan. Like, do I want Farhan Zaidi to have a winning season? Not really. Not from this mess, but especially now that they're out of the playoffs, right? But do I want to see the D-bags get embarrassed? Yes, I do, and I want that more. I want that more than anything. And then if you're going to do that, you might as well win. You might as well win out.
Okay.
Might as well just go 6-0, 9-0 to finish the season. And what is it? 11 out of your last 12.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll take that. And even the last 3 games, I mean, we got deprived of the Brandon Crawford reunion tour. So there really isn't any much more to cheer on other than try to beat them. So I'm down with that.
Yeah. Wait, we knew that was going to happen, Matthew.
Oh, we did. We called it from the very beginning.
I predicted that was going to happen.
Yep.
And that's why he wasn't a Giant. It was because that was going to happen.
And it's better that the Cardinals did it than the Giants.
Exactly. So, yes. Yeah.
All right. No. Well, I guess that's enough. We could put that to bed. The Giants are hot. We'll see how hot they finish the season. In the grand scheme of things, it matters a little. It matters in some ways more than others. At this point, but ultimately your goal at the beginning of the season is to win the World Series. And the Giants clearly aren't going to be doing that. So it's hard to be all excited about the last 6 games of the season, even if we can do some damage to the Diamondbacks.
I think, I definitely agree with that. We should all be disappointed. Nobody should be silver lining this. Like, even if you don't like the cynics like Ben, or and even if you're not as a head in the clouds, kind of like can't see the writing on the wall optimist like Matthew, right? Like, you have to acknowledge that this was not what we all wanted, and it's not what we all expected. And this was an underperformance by the entire organization. Mostly the players, I believe. But there was a lot of weirdness going on this year with the front office as well, per usual. And so it's a disappointing season in a string of disappointing seasons. 3 disappointing seasons in a row. And so,
since 2021, we're 7 games under 500.
Right.
So, as of this date. So it's hard to get excited about any of that. It would be one thing if this was a one-off season, like we kind of excused it in 2022, but now three seasons in a row is a pattern.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what you are.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, we said we were going to break down the team. We've already gone over infielders and outfielders. It's probably bullpen time. What do you think?
It is bullpen time. I'm going to convince everybody why Camilo is the best and should remain. The rest of this bullpen, whatever.
Okay.
Rebuild
folks,
it.
Just listen to us anyway. Okay. Even though Ben's spouting nonsense. All right. The
winter vacation is a very good cocktail, Matthew, especially when you drink it really fast.
Okay. All right. It is a very good question.
All right. So how do we want to do that? What we did before is we went through all of the players and we talked about, I think we kind of broke them all down.
Well, yeah, maybe we just talk about who has done well and who we expect back. maybe just kind of as a starting point. Although I do want to say, like, I'm looking at like the list of Giants pitchers this year, and there are any given day there are 13, or in this case now that there are 28 players on the roster, there are 14 pitchers on your staff. We have used 27 pitchers and 3 position players for a grand total of 30 pitchers this season, if you count them. I don't know if that's unusual or not. It seems like a lot, particularly when you've got guys that have pitched a 2/3 of an inning and then were DFA'd, or two innings and then were let go. Then there are a couple of those players. I didn't know who Raymond Burgos was. I didn't know who what's the guy's name?
Bauman.
Mike Bauman. Like, yeah, who knows?
Bauman.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I don't even remember who that guy is. And so just that alone, when I'm looking at the pitchers and you just kind of pull up the stats and you just get depressed. Like all these names and all these guys that kind of cycled through.
Okay. Don't go down this rabbit hole. Don't go down this rabbit hole. I know what you're doing. You're just going to keep digging, and the hole's just going to get deeper. Okay, and you're never going to get to the end of it. You're going to get down there in the Spencer Howard, Mitch White land, and I got to stop you before you get to Nick Avila. So just.
I was just about to mention him.
Okay. So no. Okay, let's talk about the bullpen that we have now, and also talk about the bullpen that we have had overall. But I will say this, Matthew: the San Francisco Giants bullpen was the second most productive, shall we say, the second most busy bullpen in all of baseball. As of Saturday, they had thrown 624 and 2/3 of an inning. Just a couple of innings more than 3 innings more than the Miami Marlins, and 30 innings less than the Tigers. The Tigers must not have any starting pitching, but very good bullpen apparently. And so I think that number one is the biggest sign of what went, one of the two things that went really wrong for the San Francisco Giants. And we're going to break this down, I think, in a future episode. But like the starting pitching was supposed to be a strength, right? Pitching overall was supposed to be a strength for the Giants. The starting pitching was supposed to be especially a strength. When you are the second most, when you have the second most relief innings in all of baseball, your starting pitching did not go well. I think that can be said. And that's a reason. I think that is one of the main reasons why we had 3 position players plus so many other guys run through this organization this year, because they just needed so many, because the good starters that they did have were hurt. And then a lot of the starters that they brought in to replace them were bad. And so they just had to keep trying somebody else. But we're here to talk about the relievers. And I think the bullpen that we have right now is a good one. I don't think it's a great one, but it's definitely a good one. They did not have a good April and March, and they did not have a good June or July. But in May and then August, and since August, they have been very good. Now, they haven't been amazing, right? In May, they were the 4th best bullpen in all of baseball in terms of ERA. They were the 4th best bullpen in August, and they have been the 10th best bullpen in September. So they're good. They're above average, sometimes elite. But more often than not, when you put it all together, overall, they were just average. And that's because they were very bad in April, and they were very bad in June into July. And that's because Blake Snell was missing, and then everybody was missing. And so they just had to rely on a lot of dudes. But right now, the bullpen is good. So let's go over the good guys who we're definitely certain are coming back for next year.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So number 1 at the top of the list, definitely coming back, definitely going to be your closer, Camilo Doval.
Right. Yeah, sure. Okay. Let's, I'll just edit that out, folks. Ryan Walker is right. That's right.
Yeah, it's Ryan Walker. Even with his first loss in the 9th inning, no, by a mile. He was quite good and remains good, and will have to go things will have to go horribly wrong for him to lose the closer role. He will be the closer next year. I think the guy currently in the setup role is the same guy it's always been, Matthew. It's your favorite side armor, submariner, your favorite twin,
Tyler
Rogers.
Tyler's interesting. I was looking at his numbers. He's given up 66 hits and 69 innings, which, is good, but not great.
It's nice is what it is.
Okay. Yes, it is. All right. And then, but what really amazes me is he's got 50 strikeouts in 69 innings, which seems high to me, but only 5 walks.
Yeah.
The man has a 1.02 whip after giving up almost a hit an inning, which is that's just crazy. So, yeah. I mean, he hasn't done anything to deserve not being the setup man. He's done a very good job.
Well, but there's one interesting thing about his stats, too, though, is that he has 6 reached on errors, which is way more than everybody else on the team.
That's just got to be a fluke, though, right?
I don't think so. I don't think this is a fluke.
I'm thinking batters cueing it off the end of their bat. And it's just kind of spinning towards, infielders or something.
Right. And the infielders have to sprint in and make a desperate play. And sure, it might look like an average play, but they're like, it's a slower hit ball than usual. And so it's going to be a bang, bang play. And they rush it and they make an error. That's my theory. So
I could see that.
Yeah. So, and that's like 9% of his, or 8%.
Yeah, almost, yeah. 8% of all of his batters he's faced got on about error.
Of the hits that he's allowed, and it's like, of the batters that he's allowed to reach are because of error, which is weird and interesting. But no, I mean, he's one of the weirdest and most effective relievers in all of baseball, and everybody thought the league was going to catch up to him and figure him out 2 years ago, and they never did, and they never will. So as long as he can keep doing it, he'll keep doing it. He's your setup guy. There you go. Okay, I think we're going to... the next guy on this list, I put him high up on this list because I think this is where he should be, but we're going to move his name down because I know he's controversial. So let's move on to Eric Miller, who is clearly your leverage lefty. Like, if he's not your opener. He did open 10 games this year.
That's crazy.
But, yeah, it is crazy. He started 10 games and only gave up a run in 2 of them, by the way. He pitched an inning in every single one of those outings and only gave up a run in 2 of them, where he gave up a single run in both. Then he made 61 appearances beyond that, or 60 appearances beyond that, for 70 appearances total through Saturday. And for whatever reason, like, his stats and his numbers, they look comparable to Taylor Rogers, but Baumel likes him better. So he gets more of the leverage innings. They both have pitched very well, and some of Taylor's stats are better, but Miller gets the more high leverage situations. He will come back, and he will obviously continue to be in that role. And I think also Taylor will come back, but I think they might want to move his salary if they can. So I would put him on that sort of maybe list, but he's a strong maybe.
Yeah, the only thing is that they'll probably need to bring in another left-hander then, so it just creates an opening if they're going to. I mean,
do they? I mean, a lot of teams only go with one lefty. And what's also interesting is that Taylor had weird stats this year. Righties were worse. Yeah,
he had reverse. Yeah, he did have reverse splits this year. Yeah,
but it was only this year. Has not been a trend throughout his career. So it could just be a fluke. But I mean, I don't know. Like, a lot of teams only carry one lefty, so I'm not convinced that they need one. But the thing is that, like, when your number 1 lefty is major league minimum and your number 2 lefty is $12 million, you probably want to move that guy, the $12 million guy, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Eric Miller's interesting looking at his stats because he's got a 193 batting average against. So guys don't hit him well. His biggest weakness is he throws a lot of walks. So he's got 35 walks and 65 in a third inning. So if he could maybe just cut down on the number of walks, he'd be, even more effective. But overall, he had a pretty good year. Actually.
He had a very good year, and I think he got better as the year went on as well. So he's going to be back. He's going to be a high leverage lefty. He's going to be in that spot. All right, it's time to talk about Camilo, because given in his last outing, I think his last outing On the surface, it was just typical Camilo, right? But it was also
two walks. Yeah, definitely.
It was a typical good Camilo, though, right? Like, remove everything else from it. But this is how he often does it, right? He often walks somebody or lets a runner get on somehow, right?
Yeah.
He's very infuriating, and like the times where he doesn't give up the walk, he gets a BS single, right?
Yeah.
And so that outing that he had looked very typical. And then so he walks those two guys, and you're like, oh God, here it goes. And then Tyler Fitzgerald makes me think that we should get Ha-Sung Kim by muffing that for sure ground fielder's choice because he's trying to rush it and get the double play. And suddenly now Camilo's bases are loaded and nobody out. I don't remember exactly the sequence of outs, but I got to tell you, the fact that Baumel left him in there, right? Even they had Beck up, but it was like the fact that Baumel put him into that spot, right, to close the game, and the fact that he let him pitch through it, I think were both very telling, which is that this is a guy that if they can get him to come back to pitch at the level that he pitched at the previous 3 seasons, then wow, they have quite the 3-headed monster at the back end of their bullpen.
Agreed.
Right? And you're starting to build an elite bullpen. So he's huge, and I think that's where they want him to be. They want, I think, Camilo to be the high leverage righty. Either he's a 7th inning guy or the 8th inning guy. I don't know where he stacks up against Rogers. I think having the ability to go Doval, Rogers, Walker, that's quite a back and forth kind of pendulum swing against a team. And so you might want to do it in that order. But either way, that's what they want to have happen. And so I think that's what they hope for Camilo. And we all know that he can do it. And it was nice to see him, after that long delay, suddenly find himself in those pitches, right? Like, I think Baumel was complaining that they were taking so long. But there was also part of me that was wondering, is Baumel out there just trying to make time? To give Camilo the chance to, like, I'm really going to draw this out so he can get some throws off the mound and maybe find that fastball. Because that's ended up that's what happened. And then suddenly it's a very, very different at bat for poor Tommy Pham. So I think Camilo Doval is the kind of the wild card in this, right?
Oh, absolutely. Right. I mean, he definitely makes or breaks that up. His success determines whether the back end of your bullpen is elite or not, I think, for sure.
Right. All right. So a couple of other names that we haven't mentioned, but I think are very important. Matthew, do you know which pitcher out of all of the relief pitchers for the San Francisco Giants threw the most innings in relief? Because you can't say Jordan Hicks.
Well, I'm going to guess Sean Jelly.
It was Sean Jelly. Everybody's always talking about how many games Walker and Tyler Rogers have appeared in. And then, of course, Eric Miller right behind them at 70. But despite all of that, nobody has thrown more innings this year than Sean Jelly. Did not start one game this year. And didn't 78 start innings, game. 78 and a third innings. Yeah. That's right. Ryan Walker started a game. Sean Jelly did not. Of course, Walker only threw 1 inning in that game, but whatever. He threw 77 and a third innings through Saturday. But Walker passed him today because I believe Shelley did not pitch today. No, Jelly did pitch today, so he still remains ahead. But he had a good inning today too. He did, yeah. Sean Jelly has 1/3 of an inning more than Ryan Walker. And he looked very good today. He was the only guy who didn't hit a batter. Well, just this whole season, I mean, he's a guy that's kind of been, just this weird kind of anomaly of a pitcher. I mean, not really know what to do with him. And this year, he just seemed to be really kind of the quiet presence in that bullpen. I mean, he had a 3.79 ERA, 1.17 WHIP, 74 strikeouts to 14 walks. He pitched well. This year, and
it makes you think like that he definitely is that kind of long relief kind of guy that, that the Giants especially seem to need.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he's the long relief guy, but he's a guy who can throw multiple innings, and he did have a stretch where he was very bad this year, and then he had another stretch where he was kind of mediocre, but he got through both of them, right? And at times was dominating and seems to be back into that space again. So, you like to see somebody who can make it through those sorts of things. So I think he's definitely going to be, like you can pencil him in. Not pencil him in. I think you can write his name down in ink as being in the bullpen next year. All right. But then I think things get a little bit more squishy. Right now, it's Spencer Bivens, Tristan Beck, and Austin Warren on the roster. But of course, remember, we have 2 more roster spots than normal right now. I like all of these guys. I mean, Austin Warren, like what? Who? Where? What? I mean, I know he's only pitched in like 4 games, but the guy looks great. I figured he was just another Mitch White.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, he is that extra guy. He is the last. The Giants now have 14 pitchers, and he is that 9th bullpen arm. But he's been good, and he'll be back in the minors next year, I'm sure, ready to get called up when they need him. But I think Spencer Bivens is the one that I think is really exciting, and great story, but also just really impressive. He's done a really good job.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. He's a great story. He's the guy who I complained about. That he was at that point of the season where the Giants were really, really not great. And he was like, oh, let's everybody get excited about this story. And I was like, it's only exciting if he pitches well. Right. And who cares about the guy who started in France, who pitched in France and then got shelled on his one, appearance in the major leagues? Well, now it's a great story. Yes, he has been a great story. And I think he's like, he's your sort of long man. He's your swing man. He even had, a couple starts this year where he pitched, more than
very well.
Yeah. And he pitched deep, right? I think one of them, he might have even gone 5 innings. And so he's almost sort of that traditional swing man. And so like, those are the names 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I guess. Those are like the 7 names where I'm like, that's your bullpen. Right? I mean, you need 1 more if you want to have 13. But I think, insert name of other guy here. And you have Tristan Beck on this list and he's on the team there. I kind of consider Tristan Beck to be part of that starter pool, though, rather than a bullpen guy. I mean, I guess that remains to be seen, like what kind of pitcher he is after coming back from surgery and all that sort of stuff. But
Yeah. But, in his rookie year, he had 3 starts and I think like 10 total games. So I think he's still kind of on the bubble of where he's going to land, but could be in the bullpen if that's where they need him for sure.
Right. All right. But there are other guys on the 40-man roster. Randy Rodriguez, who appointed himself well. He was fine. He was like an early innings guy, at times very good.
Yeah, I really liked him. I feel like he had a lot of potential. I mean, he had some really wicked pitches. And so I was actually pleasantly surprised by Randy Rodriguez, and I wouldn't mind seeing him back in some way.
He also had 2 outings where he pitched 3 innings plus. I think one of them was a spot start and another one was an emergency relief, probably in a Blake Snell game. Or maybe it was a Robbie Ray game. I think it was a Robbie Ray game. It was one of those games where one of our Cy Young Award winners, pooped all over himself in the first inning. But yeah, he pitched really, really well. Also, we have Ethan Small.
Of the Coney Island Smalls?
Of the Coney Island Smalls, yes. I don't know much about Ethan. I do know that I believe that he was spent most of the season hurt with an oblique strain, and then made his way back. But then he didn't have an appearance after the end of August with Sacramento, and I didn't see him get put back on the IL. So I don't know what happened to Ethan Small at that point. But 2024 was his last option year, which means he will have to make the 26-man roster or be DFA'd in 2025. So I don't.
It'll be a long shot for Ethan Small of the Coney Island Smalls.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
There might be some tears in Coney Island.
Correct.
In the spring. Yeah.
And there are two other pitchers on the 40-man roster, but I think of these two as starters. Well, I mean, I think one of them is a starter because that's all he's done is start. And that's Trevor McDonald, who has pitched quite well in the minors. He had a good progression through the minor leagues this year and pitched his last 9 games, I want to say. 9, yes, games in Sacramento, and did quite well. So, he's young. He'll be 24 next year. And he's definitely part of, I think, the Giants' depth. He's not a name that you've heard a lot about, but he's on the 40-man roster, which means the Giants like him. They didn't want to lose him. And he had a good year this year, so I think I would put him into that starting pool depth, though, because that's all he's been doing. And then there's the last name, Kai-Wei Teng, who has also been pitching as a starter recently. But I think he was worse in Sacramento this year, Matthew, than he was in San Francisco. But I think we should, again, consider him to be part of the starter pool. There you go. I mean, I think that's your bullpen. I think the bullpen, what that means largely is that the bullpen that you have right now, as of today, minus a couple people, could be the bullpen that you have next year. And it would be a top 10 bullpen. And if Camilo Doval comes back and is the regular Camilo Doval, then it's going to be better than that. On the other hand, I think it could be better. I wouldn't mind seeing another stud.
Yeah.
I don't know what the free agent market looks like or how else they could pad it, but I'd like to see another really dominant arm in the bullpen. Do they desperately need it? No. They clearly need to figure out a lot of things. And so I think the bullpen is the least part of their problems. But while their bullpen was good at times this year, I don't think it was ever great. Well, I guess what we saw in August was pretty great. But I think it could be better. What I also will say is that they really, really need to figure out the starting situation so they don't put so much pressure on the bullpen and force them to have to do something like the Spencer Howard, Nick Avila, Kai-Wei Teng, Mitch White combination, who together threw 52 innings, Matthew, for the Giants this year, which is 8% of all of the relief innings that the Giants threw. That would be 9.3% for a normal team, by the way. A normal team, 52 innings would have been about 9 or almost 10% of your relief innings were pitched by Howard, Avila, Teng, and White. That's more innings than Luke Jackson. That's more innings than Randy Rodriguez. That's more innings than Landon Roop, including his starts. That's more innings than Spencer Bivens, including his starts. That guy, Howard, Avila, Teng, White, pitched more than all of those guys.
So you take out of those and your bullpen improves dramatically, for sure.
Yeah, because those numbers are not just bad, Matthew. They're horrific.
Totally.
The Giants also had 2 other bad relievers this year, and they were Doval and Luke Jackson. Yeah. Other than that, everybody else was above average. But these guys were atrocious.
Well, and I think some of that, and we'll talk about this on Wednesday, but some of that is a direct result of the struggles of the starting pitching and how much that put pressure on the bullpen. So, you fix that and maybe the bullpen gets better by default. That's
true. And I will say, like a lot of Kai-Wei Teng's games, they were games that the Giants weren't going to win because he came in at a point where it was mop-up duty. Yeah, but Howard and Avila, those guys cost Giants wins. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think that's going to cover it for the bullpen, Ben. And we will, like I said, talk about the starters on Wednesday, and I think just tie the whole pitching staff together because there are definitely a lot of question marks as it relates to the starting pitching going into next year. And that definitely affects how the bullpen is constructed as well. I think it's time for the trivia question answer, Ben.
Let's do it.
So the question was, how many home runs did the Giants hit against the Royals in the entire 7 games of the 2014 World Series? And, Ben, they hit 5 on Saturday against the Royals. In the entire 2014 World Series, they hit 2 home runs. Hunter Pence hit a first inning home run in Game 1 of the World Series in their win in Kansas City. And Gregor Blanco led off Game 2 with a home run, which they ultimately lost that game, Game 2, and then didn't hit another home run the rest of the series. The Royals actually only hit 3 for the entire series. Wow. So it was a pretty, pitching dominant series, although the Royals did win a 10-0 game, if I recall.
Pitching defense.
Yeah, so that was, So, you don't always have to hit home runs, but I thought it was interesting that the Giants just hit 2 home runs. And of course, Hunter Pence, who's now in the TV booth a lot with John Miller, we got to hear a little bit about his home run, or they showed it during today's game. So it just kind of made me think, how many home runs did they hit that series?
Wow, they didn't hit any at home.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah, none.
I was at that World Series. I went to Game 4, which was the only game that the Giants won that Madison Bumgarner did not appear in.
That had to be one of them.
Had to be one of them. That's right. Yeah, it was a come from behind. It was a seesaw affair. It was quite overwhelming. It was a lot. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Looking ahead, Ben, we got the Arizona D-Bags for 3 games. As we mentioned, they are fighting for that final playoff spot. They are 87-69, tied with the Mets. They're 2 games ahead of the Braves, who are the first team out of the playoffs and really the only team that has a chance to even catch one of them. So we'll see how we do against them. Players to play for both teams: Cody Ross, Cody Ransom.
Oh.
And there wasn't a third Cody. I was so hoping there was going to be a third Cody, but there wasn't. So I went with Bobby Estalella. Oh. And if you remember him, his massive arms,
Chestalella,
I think they were probably bigger than both Codys combined.
That's right.
So Bobby Estalella played
right
for both teams.
So you mean Cody Ross, Cody Ransom, and Cody Estalella.
There you go. All right, Ben. Well, it's been good chatting with you. Folks, don't forget to follow us on the socials at Giant Cocktails on the platform formerly known as Twitter, on Instagram, on Threads and Mastodon. Also, don't forget to follow us. You can also follow us on YouTube and hit that subscribe bell when we publish. Also, don't forget to go over and subscribe to the Perfect Sip podcast if you'd like to know more about cocktail making. We really would appreciate that. And finally, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really would help the show. Ben, we're nearing the end of the season. We'll see how they do against the D-Bags on Thursday. It's been good chat with you. Cheers, my friend.
Cheers, Matthew. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Giant Cocktails Podcast. Until next time, bottoms up.
I was like, what? He doesn't usually say cheers. And I was like, no, that's what he always says, dude. He always says that. And then you say, cheers, Matthew. Bye, everybody. And I was like, oh, yeah. Right.
Didn't mean to throw you off after 257 episodes.
Right. Sorry. See, what you did there was you did it like you always do. And that's, oh, man.
You were expecting me to throw a curveball, and instead I threw a fastball right down the middle?
That's right. You froze me.